Welcome to the Reality After Show. We are covering the Challenge World Championships, episodes 6 and 7, A Brave New World, and the New World Order. Don't tell Hulk Hogan that. We'll probably get a copyright infringement, but we are here. I am your host, Alex Trias, always joined by Dan Montchal. We took the week off last week. Life gets in the way sometimes, but we're back with a double-packed episode.
Yes, sorry, to all the viewers. I saw a few comments out there of where we were with last week's episode. We're going to cover them both today, and then moving forward, we should be able to hit it every Friday on our normal schedule.
Yes, but we are going to get right into it because this Friday is a beautiful day. Dan has been gone in Houston all week, and I want him to be able to, recover on that sleep. REM's important, folks. Okay. So we had two great episodes. This season keeps on giving. I'm enjoying it, even at the expense of my favorite players going out in like John A and Bananas back to back. I'm enjoying the ride of this season. Like, it's so fun this season to like go in, not really have rooting interests in anyone, but just like sitting back and enjoying the show. And this is the most fun I've had just covering and watching a challenge season in a while.
No, it's a lot of fun to do. And you think of some of the good ones, good seasons over, the past 10, 15 seasons that we've been covering. And some of the best ones, unfortunately, like World of Worlds 1 is always, people love that. Bananas goes episode 2, and it sucks not seeing them there, but there's still, with that season, there were tons of other big characters and big new characters. And I keep going back to that on comparisons, but I think it's pretty accurate because I think it's what we're getting is luckily we were stacked with the Legends cast, some more popular than the others, but there aren't too many there where it's just like, they don't do it for me. Most of them bring some type of reaction out of me, and we keep seeing the MVPs bring it. So I don't know what more we could want from this season. I think it's delivering week after week.
Right. And like, really, we are seeing the philosophy clash of challenges that are challengers that we were talking about in our previous podcast about this season, where you have the Legends who are playing like they're playing the friend game, but they're also playing like the long-term game of it all. Whereas you have these MVPs who are like, okay, I enjoy these people. I'm going to be in alliance with them this season. I'm not focusing on what's going to be happening 1 season, 2 season, 3 seasons down the line. I'm willing to shoot at anyone and everyone. If you're Ben, it's like you have these clashes that just make it so much more intriguing. And you know what? I think for the first time in a long time, Casey actually has a partner that gets her elevated screen time.
Yeah, it's when, we're covering the first 2 episodes and we get to the beginning of episode 2 and it's Casey and Ben are paired together. I think both you and I kind of did a collective eye roll. Be like, okay, like that team's probably going to do pretty well, but they're going to be extremely boring and nothing's going to happen. And I got to say, I'm pleasantly surprised. I kind of like this Ben. I like this Ben that's a little unhinged. He goes a little bit off the rails. It's a lot more exciting. And I think we're getting that from a lot of these MVPs. I mean, we've spoke about it before a little bit in the past couple episodes, but where has this Danny McRae been the past 2 seasons on our screen? Because it's someone completely new. We'll get into it. There's some of the things where I'm not completely in agreement with, but he's making exciting TV.
Oh no, for sure. But you hear it from Danny himself that he's like, this isn't my normal self. I am a very chill person, but these people are getting to me. And you know what? They are still getting to him because he is one of the few people who is not afraid to just go off on Twitter. Any chance he gets, he keeps prodding at Bananas, keeps prodding at Tori, at the veterans. He's like, whenever they go on Bananas podcast or whatever, he keeps commenting after. He's like, these vets still don't know what was happening in the game. Like, talk about not being observant. I'm like, man, Danny, not holding punches. And I love it. Like, is there conflicting things? Of course. There's always going to be conflicting things. But the character of Danny McRae, I am just so on board. And what I'm even more on board is this season of Danny and Tori having to do confessionals together, and you could just feel how much distrust, not hatred, but hatred of
It's like
each
more like the
other,
tension.
but not the good kind.
There we go. There's our buddy Wayne. We
Oh,
love
your
Danny
side
too, Wayne.
piece.
My side piece. So I think I saw this comparison and it was online, and I want to adjust it a little bit because if you just say it word for word, it's going to sound like you're crazy. I
Yeah.
feel like what Danny is becoming is the good version of someone like Turbo. And I'll explain that because from, World of Worlds 1, Turbo, he was very, behind the scenes. All he did was he showed up and performed. He ended up winning, but he wasn't getting into these conflicts. Where then what happens is Turbo, he goes absolutely nuts. He's been insane on our screens every time since. But I feel like with Danny, we're getting that good version of Turbo because he has a little bit more of that. I don't want to say confidence. He's a professional athlete. So, of course, he has confidence, but more of a better feeling of the game and footing. And he's able to push the buttons, but in a way that's exciting, not just pissing off the entire cast to where they want nothing to do with him.
Right. But it's also because I think Danny comes into this like, sure, he knows it's a game that needs to be played. He's playing the game that he wants to play. His partner isn't playing the game that he wants to be playing. But Danny doesn't play like someone, and you can see it in his social media because like one of his really good connections with a legend is Yes. And because just like Danny, Yes doesn't really play the long-term political game. Yes is always someone who comes into a season, sees who's on the cast, and that's how he like maneuvers through the game. It has nothing to do with like, oh, I'm gonna keep pushing forward and do something else. Like he's really good friends with Bananas. That didn't stop him from putting Bananas in because he said in this season, Sarah and Emily have had a very good relationship, and Sarah's been protecting Emily. It's my turn to repay the favor to Sarah. So it's like Yes is able to detach the like friendship outside a game relationship with, well, this is what my game plan is right now, and and that's I think Danny's philosophy. It's like he's like, oh, I I can rock with you outside this game, but like in this game, and you hear it from Tori, it's like maybe we would be good outside in a different environment. If that's how we first met, like we would be good, but in this game with the plans that he has versus what his alliance, what his country has, they don't mess. It's oil and water. And he doesn't care because he's not thinking about, oh, World Championships 2, or if he gets brought back for another USA season or a main show, which, to be fair, USA could end up becoming the main show based off how they cast for season 2. But I would say at this moment in a world where the main show still happens, you are shipping so many of these MVPs over to the main show as soon as possible. If I'm production.
So I love what you brought up about Yes there. His connection. He's
But we all
friends
love
with
Yes.
Yes, but his connection with Bananas, and he's not afraid. And it's why whether we go to having the main show and USA and All Stars or a few others, I think him here is showing the importance of why. We'll go back to the Vacation Alliance. Why it sucks is because when you're bringing the same people on over and over, like 4 or 5 seasons in a row, they feel like they have to work together because they're going to be seeing each other every single season. Where when you have people like Yes, you have some of these others that aren't there every season. They're able to create these working relationships depending upon the seasons with different people, so that when you're bringing back these new casts that are like a mixed dynamic of veterans, I think that's what we want to see in the show, because they're not just going to be, oh, these two are on the season, they're automatically going to work together. But it's something that, okay, one of them takes a season off, and they're not on for 3-4 seasons. Well, 4 seasons from now, they could be working together, and it's constantly moving the dynamics, which I think that's been the biggest complaint, is we're getting the same alliances dominate time after time after time.
And you know what? We could be seeing that for 39 very soon, because the rumor mill is swelling with info where it sounds like a good chunk of that Vacation Alliance either is taking a break or not getting a call.
Good.
Right? It's like,
Yeah.
that's so interesting. So I'm like, that, and that's why I'm like, if that's true, and some of your mainstay people aren't coming back to the next season, hit the iron while it's fucking hot. Send these people over. Help send like these veterans that are only doing all stars over. Like send Kellyanne over. Like
Mhm.
Kelly, say what you will, and we gave our stuff about Kellyanne in the earlier episodes, but I do have to commend her with these 2 episodes. Like she does what she wants to do, and you know what? She gets it done.
Absolutely. She's I mean, the way that her and Tristan have been performing lately, it certainly has me surprised. And I still don't necessarily think that they're going to be here,
Oh
till the
no,
end game, but it's exciting to see. And I think it's why she's a different person, because you look, and we'll get there, we'll start going beat by beat. But in the episode 7, where Tori just looks at her as such a wild card, being like, "Oh, I can tell Kellyanne she's just going to be happy to be safe, knowing that they're going to be fine." And there's a little bit more to her. She's a complex character that is like, "No, I don't want to do that. Let's shake this up and do something else that's not." And she poses it in a way that this doesn't just help me, but this helps this other group and helps kind of galvanize this group together, which is something that from surface level you wouldn't think to see from Kellyanne.
and I think really that big trigger point is being betrayed by someone that she felt very close to outside the game in John A.
Mhm.
Whether or not like there was motives, and we discussed that enough where we don't have to break into it here. Um, it allowed her, I think, to open up her game where she was like, okay, like if my friends were willing to betray me, and then there's other people here that I just have very conflicted histories with, like bananas, it's like, um, I'm gonna do what I want to do. These are the people I'm not gonna say their name, and these are the people I'll tell if their names are being told, and we're gonna get something done. And you have the appropriate players around that are receptible to it, because there's so much to say. Because like you see this band of misfits in episode 7, because it's them and Jody and Benha, and then they tell Darrell, and now Darrell's good with Kellyanne outside the game, and now he's being told by her that his name was being pitched by the USA people. So now you have them. Then you go to Amber, who basically said that's the only Australian team that she trusts, and maybe a big part of that is the fact that you have Troy and Kiki, who won the season together, and she had Darrell as her very first partner,
Mhm.
and that connection was very strong for her. So now you bring them in, and then like it allows this stalemate to happen that creates that um breaking point for Ben and
Mhm.
Casey, where they need to like protect themselves over the group entirely, because that's just what they're going to need to do to survive. But we'll get back into that. We're going to start with episode 6, Brave New World. And here is, we have the stalemate, and a decision needs to be made by Darrell and Kiki, who had won the daily. And ultimately, they choose Ben and Casey. The main reason being that Ben was trying to flip Troy against all of Team Australia, including Darrell and Kiki, by saying that Troy was being used and Troy was at the bottom.
Mhm.
And you know what? That's justifiable in a world where you just have to make a decision based off anything. That's a very reasonable thing to use to throw someone in.
So jumping ahead just a tad bit after the elimination, I wish Darrell would have said that for his reasoning when he's asked by Ben and Casey, because he kind of says that like in his confessional.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's a good look for Darrell, how he's just stumbling around kind of his words when he's confronted.
I think the issue there is, by him confirming that that's the reason why, it plays into Ben and Casey's hands and confirms that Ben and Casey shouldn't work with them.
Mhm.
Whereas, like, you leave it open ended and make it look like, I'm just this old man, and like the first I saw Ben's face, and so I said Ben and Casey, like that type of thing. It's like there's too much. There's a lot of vagueness there that it's like, okay, if you're Ben and Casey, like, well, we hate that he said our names, but he was obviously told by someone else to put our names in, so we're going to direct our focus that way. It's because now it comes across more as like, oh, Darrell's just trying to protect whoever told him to say the name, instead of Oh, Darrell just thought of it himself.
I think one of the other maybe reasonings for picking Ben and Casey's. Now, this comes from Wes, so probably this conversation happened, but maybe it didn't. Is that Darrell apparently told Wes that the person that scares him the most in this game is Casey, because Casey plays the exact same type of game that Darrell does, where it's very low, not under the radar, not ruffling feathers. And I think there could have been some worries about, well, they could kind of check that box for someone else. And that's a spot that maybe I want moving forward. If the game opens up and it's not just country by country, but it's more pair by pair.
I feel like it's a little different in terms of the Casey Darrell comparison, because I think, and this isn't shade to Darrell, but I think Casey's a lot more of a loyal alliance player, where like Darrell doesn't really do alliances. He's just like, I either rock with you or I hide from you so that you don't say my name.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that makes sense.
But I guess it's a similar enough archetype where it's like, okay, if you see someone who's similar to you, you want to remove them so that you can fill that box.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking along the lines, I get this is the challenge, but like the survivors, sometimes like, hey, I want to vote out that person because I see the spot they have, and that's the spot I want.
Okay. Well, this gets us to the elimination, so it's going to be Ben and Casey versus Wes and Zara, and it's called Herculean Strength. Only 2 things there for the metrics. Pretty straightforward. Do you have it?
It's got to be strength and math, right?
It was strength and math, and it's a split 50-50. Yeah. You got it.
Finally.
There you
Probably
go.
going to butcher all the rest of the ones this episode, but
Well, you're in luck for episode 6. There's only one more. There's not 2 more. So, for Herculean Strength, one person will be on the platform holding 2 giant bars of weight. The other person will be solving equations. They can solve easy equations that can put 11 pounds on each side of your opponent, or a hard math equation that can let you put 22 pounds on each side of your opponent. And essentially, it's just keep doing math and adding more weight until the opponent can no longer hold that weight and the weight drops. If that happens, you lose.
And this is an absolutely terrible elimination for Wes and Zara.
So I get the fear of the dyslexia of it all. And it obviously would have been very hard, and it's very likely that they probably still lose. In no world, when you look at the 2 of them, should Zara be the one holding the weight.
No.
Wes literally shows off on his social media all the time, like, how much he works out, how, like, doing pull-ups with weight, like, attached to himself so he's able to do his body weight plus more. Wes should have been holding the weight.
Yeah, Wes should have been holding the weight, and I think it would have been a showdown with Kate. I still think, even if you take Ben's shoulder out of the equation, I think Casey's still the right person to be holding the weight for that team. But I agree, Wes should have been holding the weight and just hoping that, Zara, take your time, or you don't have to be the fastest here. Let's just try to make it as easy as possible.
there's no like copying in the sense, like Zara can look at an equation and literally say it out loud to Wes. Because like even in a world where she's doing that and then Ben just copies it, okay, you're adding the same amount of weight to Wes and Casey, and like Casey's strong, but I think Wes is stronger. So
agreed.
Eventually, Wes would have won out.
Yeah, but like as you mentioned, because they were different equations, which maybe they knew, maybe they didn't.
Right. But ultimately, both girls do the holding the weight because Wes just doesn't want Zara to have to fear her dyslexia. And Ben had surgery on his shoulder in the past 4 months before he was on this season. So he does the math, and ultimately Ben and Casey win outright. Like Zara's a good competitor, but in a competition where you're holding heavy weights, like it was stacked against her from the jump.
No, I think she has a lot of the same characteristics as someone like Amber, Like she's very good, has very good endurance, is very good overall competitor. But if you put something that's going to be strictly, about lifting or physical, it's just something they're always going to be at a disadvantage with.
Yeah, so we lose Wes and Zara here. And it's like a big wake up call to the cast in general because a very strong final team just left.
Mm-hmm.
But this is why I love Wes. Like, he talks his shit, but now he's at an age where it's like, even when he loses, he's like, he shouts out to all the MVPs saying that they belong here. If the legends tell you otherwise, tell them to fuck off. And I love that because I think he also understands the importance of having the right new blood in the show, and
Mm-hmm.
he could see it in this cast.
Well, I think it just shows to go why he's so great for the show, because some of the stuff like his, bravado and, just showing off about himself, it's also because sure, he feels that way, but he understands it's a TV show.
Yeah.
He knows if he does this, it's going to make air, it's going to be great. And so maybe he, just ups his personality a little bit more, but he can also realize that what all these MVPs are doing are great for the show. And I think at the end of the day, of course, Wes wants to win, but he wants the show to keep growing and become great. And he recognizes what the season is becoming.
Yeah, you need to have these new players that are willing to come in, have some semblance of understanding the game that they're walking into and deciding their own strategies for it. Like, legends be damned. Like, it's good to learn from a legend, and obviously there's still MVPs here that are like learning from their vets in order to navigate the game. But like, it's just such a refreshing scene to have instead of having like the noms of the world on a show where they're not speaking and not giving us anything and just are a mindless follower until they are like medevaced from the game or their partner quits.
Well, normally, if you're going to be a follower, you have to make it past episode 2.
I mean, he did his first season.
That's true.
But I digress. We get the not so subtle foreshadowing from Tori saying how that she doesn't see eye to eye with Danny and the USA team in general because of Ben and Casey are fracturing. And when alliances start to fracture, people will attack it to split it as wide open as they possibly can. And then you cut to Danny, who's like, yeah, so, yeah, I want Ben out. And I'm hoping Australia does it for me.
And I think that that's what's interesting is because they're talking about, it comes up at one point in these 2 episodes that, like it's a survivor move, have someone else take, the shot for you. And of course,
move.
Yeah. But like some of the vets, they don't like it. But I also think it's nice to see some of these strategies that it doesn't have to be played the same way season after season. See someone who's going to shake it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love that, and we get that confirmation because we see Australian and US like alliance talking to each other, or the teams within that alliance talking to each other, saying like, yeah, Ben's now our target. Let's take him out whenever we can. He's a wild card. Can't trust him, and they're right. You cannot trust Ben. Ben will tell you that himself in his confessionals. You cannot trust Ben. But I think Ben does bring up a good point, like throughout these episodes. I don't think I wrote it down, but Ben talks about like how he feels like Danny and Sarah, despite like them being conflicted with each other, like seem to like not give him the credit for like I'm able to do my own moves. Like I have won Survivor. Like Sarah's not the only one of us 3 that have won Survivor. I've won it too, and I almost got to the end of USA, and I could have given Danny a run for his money for that win if I like wasn't medically DQ'd prior to it. And you know what? I believe that.
It would have made it. I mean, going back to USA, it would have been a lot interesting because it was kind of just Tyson and Danny flopping back and forth on who was getting the most points. But I think if Ben's there, he's certainly winning and coming in second in a lot of these, that he would have made that a tight race.
And I don't think Ben quits at the Sudoku.
Well, we know Ben loves Wheel of Fortune. It wouldn't surprise me if Ben also had Sudoku books.
I mean, even if he didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would have kept going until his fingers went blue, and production would have had to like step in to be like, "Hey, if we don't pull you now, you're going to lose both of your hands."
Mm-hmm.
Like that is what I see when I see Ben play this game. It's like he's willing to put everything on the line
Yeah.
in order to get that win.
Or just let him magically say he finished it and keep going, like Sarah. You know, they could have done that
Oh,
too.
he can make one line and
Yeah.
then keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, so from there we have the Darrell and Kiki and Ben and Casey conversation, and I think it is funny that like they both are trying to like outmaneuver each other here because like Ben and Casey are like, oh, you know, they think we're gonna pop off, but we're gonna be cool, calm, and collected. That's like obviously the better thing to do. And then like if we're calmer about it, it's more intimidating. And you know what? They have their points there. I think it is more intimidating if the person that you just screwed over comes back to you and talks in a very calm voice, like, "So, why did you do that? It's like, what was in your head? Why us?" Instead of like, "What the fuck, man? Why are you doing that?" Blah, 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 and like going like full like Real Housewives about it, like flip a table. Who knows? Like, if you do that, then I'm not taking you seriously if I'm Darrell. But
Mm-hmm.
once you're acting like mature and like all like adult about it, I'm like, well, you may be just like doing it for show. But I'm like, okay, I'll hear you out. I'm not gonna tell you the truth, but I'll give you like a stupid reason.
I also did like because how they're talking because Darrell and Kiki are like sitting in the chairs at the table while Casey and Ben are literally sitting on the table, just kind of hanging over
Yeah,
them, just being like, "So what's going on, buddy? What happened there?"
but you know what? I give Ben credit, and I will give Casey credit for because as loyal of a player Casey is, Casey, well, maybe because she knows who she's partnered with now in Ben, it's like she's not going to turn on Tori or turn on like her veteran friends, but she's understanding that we have to play a little more flexible here. Like
Mm-hmm.
we can't just work with Team USA. If we keep working with Team USA, we're the bottom team clearly, especially after what like we were the team that got thrown in. I'm the one who's getting sussed out by Danny and Sarah just because I'm not going along with their plan. Um, so we need to cover our bases and make more friends with people outside of our country team.
Yeah, which I think, especially now, as we'll see that all of the countries are kind of starting to take a hit. Why, if you don't have that solid alliance, you know, that's not part of that Danny Sarah alliance, why would you not want to work with Casey and Ben?
Right. Um, but you hear that from Sarah. It's like the reason why you won't want to work with Ben is Ben will just continue to be paranoid and spiral to the point that you'll wear all of your allies out. Like you eventually there will be a breaking point. You're like, I can no longer work with this man.
Well, I want to see the breaking point.
Who doesn't want to see a good breaking point in the challenge?
Absolutely.
So now we get like the little Amber and Troy storyline of it all, of them feeling like they are on the bottom of Team Australia. Like they don't hear anything from John and Grant. They don't hear anything from Emily and Sarah, or not, or from Emily
Emily
and
and Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They see that Emily and Sarah are like besties now, and like everyone's like trying to understand. Like they're like Tori and Casey are like prodding them at that point. Like was like, how did they become besties so fast? We've only been here for a few weeks, and suddenly they're like sister-in-laws. You know, it's like
I'll give Sarah credit for that because we've always seen her develop these close
especially with the
relationships.
women.
Yeah, she's always been great at doing that. And then someone like Emily, where we saw from just going off of the Challenge Australia, she only had one or two close friends. So if that was something that Sarah was able to see and just being like, hey, I can bring her in tight and Emily will never look the other way, then good on
Mhm.
her.
I mean, yeah, like her main two people are Grant and whoever it is that she's like engaged to now. So
Ryan or something like that.
Ryan, sure,
Yeah.
yeah, he wasn't called back for reasons. Okay, so we have all that, and now Amber's just like, hey, I don't want to vote against Australia. But if like it comes down to it, I'm hearing my name is being tossed around, like, don't cross me, and I won't cross you. But as soon as you cross me, I'll say your name easily.
Mm-hmm.
Which then leads us to the daily for episode 6. And the daily is called Q Elton John because it's Rocket Man. I'll give you a hint. There are 3 things for this one.
Oh, shit. Is one of them swimming?
No.
All right, so if it's not swimming, then it has to be endurance.
Yes.
Endurance, we'll say 50%.
Close enough. It was 40%.
Okay. What the hell? Strength?
Nope.
All right, not strength, but it's all swimming. It can't be puzzles. I have no idea. There's 3 of them for this. All it is swimming.
So it's 40% endurance, 30% technique, and 30% speed.
That's so dumb.
See, this is why I put this on, folks. It's just to see Dan's reaction to what they decide to throw in as these percentages, because there's no rhyme or reason for them, really. But for Rocket Man, you and your partner will be like swimming to go get a puzzle piece. It's all a timed event, but before you do that, one of you will be on a giant inflatable in the water. The other person will be on a platform above it. The person on the platform will jump off, land onto the inflatable to shoot up the person that was on the inflatable to try to get over as many crossbars as possible with that could shed time from your score. So if you got over 1, it was 20 seconds. 2 would be 30 seconds. And if you got over the top one, that was a full minute shed off your time, which is huge.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you both hit the water, you swim across the quarry to both platforms, grab your individual puzzle pieces, swim to shore, and quote unquote solve your puzzle.
Wasn't it 2 pieces?
It was a 3-piece puzzle, and one of the pieces was already in there.
That's what I thought.
It was just the logo.
Yeah, so the puzzle wasn't. It was all swimming.
Imagine if it was like, oh, these pieces create like a block of a slide puzzle. Like you just went full Survivor. It's like you do this to open the bag to then get the puzzle piece to throw it into the slide puzzle to do the slide puzzle. It's like, no, but you know what? This is a challenge. I don't mind them not having an actual puzzle here. It's just like, get your puzzle piece, put it in, and it's locked.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is like we've seen a bunch of these swimming challenges in the past where at the end, when both people are done, you're ringing the bell to finalize your time. That's essentially what this just is. You're just locking your pieces in.
So I'm only going to cover, for the most part, 3 teams. Because like Kaz and Jordan go, but like Kaz is a slow swimmer, so you know that they're not going to win. We have the montage of people. I thought it was really funny with Justine and Bananas. For Bananas, like Justine is a riot because she's spending this whole time saying like how bad of a swimmer she is. She can't swim at all. I'm like, oh god, I'm gonna have to like find a way to drag her through this. But then she goes out and swims like a bullet, like Michael Phelps, and does well. So I'm assuming they were probably like upper half team for this.
Well, from what we saw, they were the only ones that cleared all 3.
They were one of the few.
Was there someone else that
Kelly
cleared all
and
3?
Tristan.
Oh, that's right.
Ben and Casey also cleared all 3. Well, I guess it depends on if you hit the bar still, if they counted it.
I thought you had to go over without knocking it, but I could be
then
wrong.
From what we saw, Justine was the only one who cleared it entirely. Ben and Casey go, they do a good job, but like again, Casey's one of her not strengths is swimming. Because she was slow. But this gets us to our main people. So we have our winning one, and that's Kellyanne and Tristan. And honestly, going into this, I was like, you know, if Kellyanne's a good swimmer, this is a winning one for her. Like, she's light. Tristan looks like he just has the body type that he would be a very good swimmer.
He looks like a swimmer, like someone that you just see like randomly at one end of Olympics. Yeah.
He's like tall with the like long arms, like the muscles are long and lean. Where it was like, and he's obviously twice Kellyanne's weight.
Mhm.
at least. So just like bumps her all the way up there. Yeah, she hits the third one, almost like clears it entirely. Um, because and I expected out of Kellyanne like the yogi that she is. I would have loved this just because like it's pole vaulting without the pole. So
Mhm.
I think this would have been very fun to do because I've seen it out in big beaches like out in like the islands
Mhm.
for fun stuff like you can do that, the banana boats and all that. Uh I think
When I
this would have
think
been
where a
fun.
lot of people struggle with it, what's you saw Kellyanne do it, you saw Justine do it as well, is that when you're hit, is so many people start to flail and panic that you're not clearing those bars because you're working against the momentum that it's shooting you.
Hmm. But yeah, but then you have the people like Kellyanne and Justine, and Casey. Like Casey was able to like muscle her way through to like get into a position that she wanted to. But then you see other people just like feeling yes, trying to go up. And it's like I understood it just because Emily is bigger, but at the same time, yes is a full grown ass man. So he wasn't gonna get to that third one in any world.
I thought it had more to do with the fact that it would have been not by much, but at least put him a little bit further ahead for the swim.
I also
I
agree
thought
on
that was
that.
the reasoning for it. Yeah.
I felt like that was probably one of them, just because Emily obviously is the superior swimmer. But like Kelly and Tristan do a very good job. But you hear Kellyanne in the back of her head just going like, I think I'm doing good. But I'm freaking out inside because I'm facing a 3-time gold medalist in swimming. Um, so I'm a little down on myself right now, but I think I'm doing well. And this is why, like, that's the part of Kellyanne that I like. Like, I don't like her when she's like in full vindictive mode. It's just
Mhm.
like such a big turnoff as a viewer for me. But like the way that she was in these 2 episodes, I'm like, oh, completely fine.
Yeah.
I really enjoy
Just
it.
a bit of a wild card, not
Wild card, creating an opposition, hits someone that I enjoy, but I'm like, you know what? Everything she's saying, it makes sense for her game. So you know what? Good on you, Kellyanne. So they do very well. We have Yes and Emily, who also do very well. I in no world do I believe that the tiebreaker was literally 1 second. In no
no.
world, no world whatsoever. Stop lying to us, TJ. Just say who won. Just say
Well,
who won.
I can only imagine that's because the producers, TJ, they were looking at our ride or die coverage where we said everything came down to 2 seconds. And they're like, oh, they're catching on to us. We got to
But
switch it
but then
up.
in episode 8 or 7 today, TJ goes, "Oh, won by a minute and change." So I'm like, okay, so you don't actually need like you just say, and just by a bit,
Yeah.
this team. Like there's literally no difference. But they do very well. It was so much fun watching Emily actually swim
Her,
because
just the
we never
way,
saw it in Australia.
no, there were no swimming challenges. The way that she moved across the water is incredible.
I don't know how to describe it. Like it like saying she was a fish wouldn't do it justice. Like it was just so fun to watch, and like she's just like because she's an Olympic body, also like she does her whole thing, goes back in, literally drags Yes to the finish line to finish it. Because like I don't think Yes was a bad swimmer. He was probably going a little slow. Um,
I would have liked to see someone swimming along for like comparison to see like how are they now.
right.
We know like Wes and Jordan are really good swimmers, but like I want to see yes his time against like Leroy's. I want to see like if he
Mm.
would have been well ahead of it, if that was the type of pace we were looking
You know
at,
what?
or
Let's put Yes, Leroy, and Nelson in the water and see what happens.
see who wins. Yeah.
Get better soon, Nelson. Um, yeah. So that's them, and now we get to the losing team. And boy, I truly I watched it. I even like rewind it and watched it again. I just do not know how you missed the inflatable.
It's massive. You're placed right above it.
And
I
like
don't
Grant's a big
understand.
dude,
Yeah.
but he somehow completely misses it. Only hits like that little end step that like is obviously there to be like help you like get down after.
Mhm.
And you see his body just like crunch in on itself as it happens. And obviously John A goes absolutely nowhere when that happens. But and like Grant saying like his my leg is like on fire, but I'm not gonna quit. I'm gonna keep going because I need to help John A get this win.
He also went, if you looked at everyone else, like they were jumping kind of straight out and landing down. He was
like went
going to the
sideways.
sideways. Yeah.
Yeah. So they do ultimately finish, and obviously it's one of those things where it's like adrenaline is taking over. He's not kicking as much of his legs, but like he's a strong dude. His upper body is like helping push him along.
Mhm.
They finish, and then he immediately just goes into the med van and gets taken away. And John A, very supportive partner, she's like, don't worry about the game. Like, your body and your physical well-being will always come first before what happens in a silly game like this.
Mhm.
But he thinks he booted his knee.
Oh, Grant. I mean, never been a huge fan, but this is never what you want to see.
Hey, you know what? It's not even a hot take. I think he was enjoyable this season.
I think he's someone that like I would like to see Fessy be more like kind of embrace your inner dickishness a little bit more.
So married with children.
Okay, I wasn't talking about his sleeping around part of his game.
By me, I think that plays in.
Oh, sure it does.
Yeah. Like Grant's not looking around trying to hook up with anything that moves.
Well, if all those fake bots would stop sliding into Fessy's DMs, then he'd be able to focus on the challenge.
But all those fake bots came from Australia.
They probably did.
So maybe it was a Challenge AU player doing it this entire time. Who knows? But they get taken away. Winning team is Kellyanne and Tristan. And you're just like, as a viewer, you're just like, damn. From poverty to royalty, real quick.
Yeah, I certainly never thought there would be a daily that those two would win this season.
No, especially because like I didn't watch it, but like I know Tristan won his season, but like Tristan never won anything outside of the final. And Kellyanne's Kellyanne. It's like, and Kellyanne is a decent competitor. Like she's not a slouch by any means, but like you just don't picture Kellyanne in that winning role.
No, Kellyanne's more of something that has a early season like Kara on it, where she's usually not winning the dailies, but she's really strong in elimination and probably wins a lot more than what you think she would.
Gotcha. No, that tracks. And obviously the losing team is Grant and John A, because Grant decides to like bend his leg like a flamingo. But yeah, so I feel like a part of Kellyanne is also just like, damn it. I wanted to be able to say John A's name. I wanted to rally the votes to get them to be one of the names, and then I get to say it this time. How to turn tables and all of that. But she doesn't get that. And by the end of this episode, she doesn't even get what she ultimately wants to see, like John A actually like lose her way out. Instead, she just goes her way out. And we'll get to that spot. So we hear people talking. Once again, friction amongst US team. Prior to that, we just hear pretty much the that beat you over the head that, oh, Jody and Benha are going to be one of the teams because they're the easy team to say since they're the only Argentina team and they don't win anything. I think it's more also just because you don't win anything and you decide not to make allies. But that's just me. That's just what I think.
You've heard it from the vets a lot that it's easy as once you say someone's name, just keep saying it. Why would you piss off another
It's
team?
why like every single episode Theo and Sarah's name gets said, because in the first episode someone just threw a vote at Theo and Sarah, and now every single time it's like we're gonna make a statement against US by throwing a burn vote on Theo and Sarah, throwing a burn vote on Tori and Danny. It's like throwing a burn vote on Ben and Casey. But we get to USA. And Tori and Bananas are talking with Danny and Sarah, and like Sarah's justified here, I will say, because like Sarah's like, look, I get that we haven't been working alongside each other. I am willing to play some ball here. I just need to know what the roadmap is. Like, what is in y'all's vision of what your plan is. Because like me and Danny, we've been planning. We've been planning what the road is to get our teams to the final.
Mhm.
And it involves like going after some of your friends. And Bananas just like, look, like, and I think Bananas is justified just from his experience too, because for the most part, Bananas' strategy in his older age is, I'm gonna make friends, get back into behind the scenes, win a daily if I need to win a daily. But outside that, just try to keep blood off my hands, do easy votes.
Mhm.
Which is why like this is never going to work, because Bananas and is friends with Jordan. Tori is never going to say Jordan's name unless Jordan gives her permission to say his name as a burn vote. Man, was that pathetic to see. But it's just like that we're just seeing all this frustration, and then Bananas leaves just because he's like, it's not worth going into this toe-to-toe yelling match with Sarah about.
Mhm.
So he just leaves it entirely. And it's just not going to work.
No, the two of them, like that's oil and water. They're never going to get on the same page.
And I love this because like we're just seeing this episode and next episode. It's just like a complete and utter fracture of the country alliances of it all. Because like you have Australia that was like a big unit, and you had USA that's a big unit. No one on USA trusts each other, and now Australia has its tension because we get to nominations, and Amber says we are voting for this AU team because they never speak to me. So yes, and Emily, you are getting my vote. Dio and Sarah, you're getting my other vote. And Emily is just like shocked. She's like taking it back because in Emily's mind, it's like we weren't playing to like throw Troy or Amber away. Like we were fully on board with keeping Australia strong and as much of US as strong as well.
Mhm.
But we see, and kudos to Ben here, because Tori, these two episodes were not good for Tori. Let me
No.
tell you. And it sort of goes to show, like, oh, when you suddenly don't make half the cast Tori's best friends alliance, that the question needs to be said, Dan. Even with her win, is Tori a little overhyped?
100%. She's
Eh,
not. I don't think that she's. So it's hard to say. I
well,
don't think because she's won, I don't think she's warranted being kind of like the female face of the challenge what they're pushing for. I think she's justified with what she's done, that she should have, like her having one win right now. I think that sounds about right. But you just look at her past few seasons and I hate it when she's on with her friends, because where did I like Tori the most? I liked her on Dirty 30. I liked her
War of the
even on
Worlds.
War of the Worlds 2, even on Final Reckoning, when she wasn't with a bunch of her friends, and you see a different side of her than just trying to make everyone happy.
Tori the underdog is such a better story than Tori the power player.
Mm-hmm.
Or even when she's not in power, like trying to be that power player, that master tier, and like just goes to show, like, I don't think when I say she's overhyped, I'm not. It's like in baseball terms, it's like who do you think is going to flop in a season? And it's like you have people talking about like this ace pitcher from last season. It's going to be a flop this season. It's like, well, by flop we mean he's not going to be an all-star MVP Cy Young candidate. He's still going to be good. It's not going to be like, oh, you're going to go 20-2 with 200 Ks and a sub 2 ERA to like 6-14 with a 5+ ERA. It's like you're just going to be average. And I think
Yeah.
she's a slightly above average player, especially when it comes to like just the competitions of it all. But because she's so focused on like the political game of it, where I feel like some of her friends were helping her do that, because as we see, her biggest struggle is not being able to separate out a game and what is helping you in this specific season. And that's something for all the legends. It's like, say what you want about Ben. Like, Ben plays more seasons, he's screwed. Like, there's no reason in any world that anyone should be seeing Ben on a cast and be like, I can trust this man.
Mm-hmm.
But I at least enjoy that he's going all out to try to get a win here. And it's like, you know what? Screw the future. I'm here in the present. Let me try to win it. Danny's like, screw the future. I'm going to win in the present. Yes is screw the future. Let me figure out how I can maneuver this game and try to win in the present. But you have people like Tori. Bananas is just ingrained in it, so it sort of like makes sense of it all. It's like you keep playing for these future games. And I guess in the way the challenge incentivizes doing that because of how the pay scale is for more seasons that you do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's now crossing that line of just the payday to like, oh, it's the payday, and also I don't want to make my friends angry.
Yeah, and I think some people they just can't do. They can have a good underdog story, but whenever they're at the top, it's just they can't tell a good story. And going back to like Kara again, is Kara had a great underdog story for years, but then she was at the top. Like you may have not have liked her, and there's a lot of things that people shit all over Kara for. But look what she did in World of the Worlds 2, how she brought that entire group together that, yes, they were layups, but she never worked with any of them. Where Tori doesn't have the ability to galvanize everyone together. She needs to rely so much on past relationships that have, been tight, the Vacation Alliance, in order to do that.
And also, slight detour here, as in like a minute. How interesting is in the next 2 seasons after all this time? We're about to see Kara and Polly on the challenge again.
I don't understand why people are upset about it. Like,
People are upset by the casting of USA just because they're bringing the main show people on. But like, newsflash, people, read between the fucking lines here. Like,
yeah.
Why do you think they're bringing them over? Do you remember what the ratings were for Challenge USA? Like, they were okay. Like, they're better than what they are on MTV because CBS is a main cable show or a main cable channel. But they weren't great. Like, you want challenge people to flock to watch a challenge show, you have to have some of what made the challenge the challenge. You need to throw in the West, the Jordan, the Bananas, the Tori. Like, the main cast has to be somewhat influenced within the cast of that show. And then you can plug in all these new players. Because guess what? That's very interesting seeing actual US reality TV people who have been prepping for the challenge for years now to then be thrown in, not just amongst all of themselves like they were in season 1, but now you incorporate some of these veterans to help bring up the entertainment value. Because let's be real, what do we remember from season 1? Everyone quitting.
Yeah.
David Alexander putting a dumbbell on his chest while walking on a treadmill.
Yeah, it's full. And like, you just think about it now. So if people are upset about some of the people they chose that were the vets, okay, that's one thing, because you're always going to have it's upset. But if people are upset that vets are on, well, then you don't get it. Because the whole point of the show, you're bringing it back for a season 2, is to grow your audience. Mm-hmm. How do you grow your audience? You make sure you bring over the people from MTV that they're invested, because they're like, hey, I know these people. I've been watching them for years. So that's going to get them to bring those viewers. You'll bring people, viewers from people that watch Survivor, Big Brother, any of the other shows that are there, because you're invested in these characters. That's the biggest thing with, some of what they've been struggling with is not caring about rookies. But if you can bring together all these viewers that have a vested interest, we know who these people are before they step on. That's what's going to grow the viewership. So the people that are completely against it, you don't understand how TV works. You just don't.
Right. And like, I can understand you being like, but I'm sick and tired of Tori. I'm sick and tired of it. We get it. Guess what? Also, reality TV, you need to have people on the cast that you can actively root against. So now you have it. You have someone that you can actively root against. So enjoy it. Back to the nominations, because I'm trying to speed this up to get into episode 7 so that we don't do a 2-hour podcast. Trying to make this an easy listening experience, folks. So we have to give Ben credit here. Ben is the one that, after Tori tells him and Casey like what their plan was about throwing Amber in, Troy in, then twists it all, goes to Amber and Troy, be like, hey, that U.S. Australian alliance is wanting you to go in, and Tori's trying to get you guys to go in. I don't want you guys to go in. Let's vote yes and Emily. And that's how it all happens. So yes and Emily are the main vote, as well as enough people throwing votes onto Benha and Jody. Those are your nominations. But Grant is still not there. And to cut the band, or like just rip the band-aid right off, we go to the arena, and Grant shows up, but he's on crutches essentially, blew out his knee, and medical has said that he can no longer compete. So Grant is medically DQ'd, and John A must leave with him. So John A leaves without losing. Like, she technically loses this season, first season that she has not gone to a final in since she's been back.
She's come back, yeah.
So quick question for you here, because we also have like the Kellyanne saying it's bittersweet, because I'd rather see, even the people that I don't like, I'd rather see them lose by losing in a fight rather than just losing because of a medical issue. Was this the right call of just automatically DQing John A, or should they have done, because I saw it on social media and I think it's interesting to say and get your opinion on, should they have had John A still compete in whatever the competition was going to be, and it was just going to be her versus one of the other girls that were nominated, and if she beats that other girl, she stays in the game and then just gets their partner?
I think it's perfectly fine the way that it is.
Okay.
I know that people are going to be upset about it.
Because it's John A.
Yeah, because it's John A, but it sucks. I mean, the few times that Sarah Rice was thrown out, for doing nothing wrong because her partners quit, or, there's been times people
sexually assaulted people.
I was going to avoid doing that. But I mean, it sucks. Like, obviously, when CT had to leave XS2 because of everything with Diem, like that was awful, for a ton of different ways. You look at Rivals 3 and Avery is taken out because Leroy needs to be pulled because of his back. Like, it sucks, but it's just,
and we're going to see Avery again.
Yeah, we are going to see Avery again, which I am excited for.
This is just like so fun that we're going through memory lane, and I'm like, oh shit, we're actually going to see them on TV again. Where I was like, I thought we were never going to see Avery again. Now I'm like, Avery was one of those always for me, like, very fun to have on a cast, but I never understood why she wasn't like getting called back or why she wasn't able to do it. So I'm glad to see her doing it now. Yeah. Also got a text from a friend of mine who said that apparently Danny said on social media too that he would never do the main show unless they shortened the length of filming, which I agree.
Yeah.
We don't need 24 episode seasons. This is an Australian Survivor. We're not airing the challenge 3 days a week.
Yeah. Going back to your question, my only caveat is I'm interested to see how it's going. Is we've put out spoiler warnings enough of the, this is coming. It's public knowledge at this point that when Amber eventually gets pulled, which is why I cringe every time that's on a challenge, because we know she's pregnant and I'm terrified for that. But so when she goes, as long as they're consistent with it, and hey, Troy, sorry it sucks. I mean, we saw this All-Stars 2, Kahada, like, hey, Casey's pregnant, we're sorry. So as long as they're consistent with it down the line that, hey, it sucks the way that it fell.
Yeah.
Your partner can't go on, so you can't go on. Then I'm fine with it. If they do anything to switch it up, then ask me again after that. But I think from what we've seen, this is the way that it's always been. It's unfortunately just how it goes sometimes.
Man, it's such a shame. But that does get us to episode 7.
One quick thing. Sorry, not trying to keep drawing this out. But one thing we didn't talk about, I just wanted to get your thoughts and opinions at deliberation. The Theo and Danny argument.
Right. I completely missed that part of my thing. Loved it. I love seeing Danny get loud, and I love seeing Theo like snap back, because like Theo's obviously just frustrated because like he's part of this USA group, and he's like, how useful are Danny and Tori if they're going to keep like throwing these burn votes? They're not helping any cause by throwing these burn votes. Like, I need to see that you stand where you stand, and the fact that you guys can't get on the same page, so you guys just keep throwing burn votes, sucks. And then Danny's just like, hey, you have a problem with me? Come do something about it. I'm right here. Like, we're both former athletes. Like, let's go. Like, I'm not going to do something that my partner doesn't want to do. We're frustrated with each other. We're throwing a burn vote. Jordan, can we throw a burn vote on you? Okay, good. Moving on. Any questions?
Just wanted to touch on it for a second.
I love it. I love it. Danny, you have my heart. You truly have my heart, Danny McCray.
But you can also see it from Theo's point of view, where he's getting loud too, and he's just being like, hey, your number one here is supposed to be Sarah. And sure, a burn vote, when there's 12 teams left, we're going to get to the point where burn vote, you can't afford to burn vote, or votes are going to go drastically wrong. So if you're our number one, how useless are you that we can't count on you to vote the way that we want you to?
Oh, yeah, no, both sides are justified. Danny's justified to be frustrated, and Theo's justified to be frustrated with how Danny and Tori are voting. Mm-hmm. It's such a bad pairing. Kiki, you done messed up telling Danny to have Tori be his second option or third, because apparently there's some people that were throwing rumors out there that she said Cara, but then if Kara's not there, pick Tori or whatever. So,
all right.
Man,
Episode 7.
Danny could have just been partnered with John A. Why didn't Danny win and get John A instead of Grant?
Would have been a lot better.
Oh, imagine Tori getting DQ'd because of Grant.
I just would have liked to see the Tori and Grant dynamic. I think it would have been even more painful to see them in the joint confessionals.
Yeah. I think it would have been very similar either way, because like Grant and Danny are just like boys.
Well, they're boys, but Danny, he's speaking his mind and he's getting his point across. But I also think that he's also, respectable, like to his partner, and we're seeing some of the moans. I'm sure there's a lot of scenes where, they're getting along better than what they are. And Grant's just a lot more brash.
I was going to say, I think Grant benefits so much from having John A as his partner. I feel like him being with Tori, he would have reverted straight back to what we saw in the Challenge Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Just like completely isolate himself, him against the world type of thing, drinking in the corner during club time. So I'm glad that we got what we got from Grant. We got what we wanted from him. He's better as a secondary character and not as like a forefront person. So we got it. So episode 7, we know that Justine and Bananas are going to go home, because Justine and Bananas are the first thing we see in the episode, and Justine's talking about how much she likes working with Bananas. She did have to wine and dine him, even though Bananas does say like it could have just been off the dollar menu.
And yeah, as soon as that popped up, I was like, oh no.
And now like this next round is, it's like, for Johnny, it's like Dusty Roads. It's like hard times, because everyone's talking about their hard times. Yes, and Emily were just nominated. They're like, we have an uphill battle. We just lost our number ones and Grant and of Team Australia, and Grant and John A. Now we just have Sarah, really. So we need to fight to stay in this game. And then we have Tristan coming in, look like in his laundry clothes, essentially, be like, here's my giving up on life look. This is where we get to Kellyanne. Kellyanne comes over with Jody and Benha and Tristan, and Kellyanne's just like, hey, we see how these people on the USA team have been playing. They've been giving a lot of deals, really too many deals. I haven't done that. I haven't made alliances. So I would like to approach. I'm not going to say your name. I'm never going to spread your name to other people. I'm not going to vote you. And we get the same thing from Jody and Benha. And now it's like these teams that were on the bottom for so long are like, if we can galvanize the troops, we can take a hit. We can fire a shot at a big player, multiple big players. Essentially, let's all target Team USA.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you know what? Go for it. And then you have the fun little foreshadowing of Darrell on the treadmill. Because, if Darrell's in that challenge house, he's on that treadmill. but that treadmill is pointed right into the swimming pool. So they have that nice shot of him running and looking over to them. And you just hear Darrell go, I see them talking. You know, hoping when it's time to strike, it'll happen because it won't be me.
We'll never be Darrell.
It will never be Darrell until it's Darrell. until a giant crane comes into play. But now more hard times because Tori feels defeated. Tori's talking with Justine and saying, like, me and Danny are just not mixing in this game. Our games are just very much not aligned. Like, Danny is working and trying to protect Sarah and trying to protect Team Australia. I'm here trying to protect Jordan and Casey. It's just not working. We're not on the same page. And then Bananas comes out of the clothes rack to go, maybe if you were just a better partner, maybe if you just listened more, none of this would be happening. That was a fun scene. I very much enjoyed Bananas' humor there. It was fun.
It's classic Banana scene.
Yeah. And now we get their team name for just this episode because they're gone at the end of it. So what are you? Are you Team Just Nanas or Team Bustine?
Bustine.
I was going to say, Justine doesn't like Bustine. But we know Stockade Kid already made a t-shirt of like the Bananas and Nani one, which just filtered Justine in, and it's now Team Bustine.
Yeah. That's the better name.
But don't worry, Tori. You're not the only one of your pair that feels defeated. Danny also feels defeated. And not himself. He's like, I don't get this angry. I don't yell. I don't fight with people. But these people, they're getting to me. Especially Ben.
That son of a bitch, Ben.
And then Ben confessional. I don't trust Sarah and Danny. I only care about me and Casey. Screw Team USA. I'm Team Ben and Casey. We just need to get to the final. And now this leads to Amber having her Dr. Phil moment with Theo and Kaz. And once again, we aren't really getting a lot from them. It's really just a rehash each episode of just like, oh, we thought it was just going to be so hard being up here with our ex, but we're actually in a very good spot and we're each other's number ones, even though we won't say it to each other.
But, yes, it's rehashing. Maybe it's going to a storyline that's going to develop. Who knows? But I'm okay with that. Just slipping in every once in a while. What I don't need, and they haven't done it this season either, but Ride or Dies is beating you over the head with the Tori and Jordan of it all.
Well, as Ride or Dies, we have to, like that type of stuff. This is Ride or Die. But okay. So it's time for the daily. Legends, you have the day off. Because the global MVPs are going to be doing 95% of the work to win for their teams. And they're going to be racing underneath a castle. The legends will be locked up and need to be unlocked by them. And it's called Tunnel Time. There are three things. And I will give you the percentages. 50%, 30%, and 20%.
Shit. One of them's got to be math.
Yep.
And that's got to be like 50%. That's
yep.
Right?
Right on the money.
Okay. All right. Math. You don't need endurance. You don't need strength. I don't know. Is math and I don't want to stall too long here. I'll say math, endurance, and screw it, techniques one, apparently.
No. You only got math. But hey, you're going to be leading this episode at least getting one right on a few of these. So good job. It's 50% math, 30% memory, and 20% speed. And really, I would have just removed speed.
I should have had memory. No, memory I should have gotten.
I would have just done 50% math, 50% memory. Because really, the only part of speed is like how fast do you do the math, which just goes back to math. So really, it then is, how fast can you go down a ladder and hit a bell. But for this, you are racing up and over to Knoll. Some traders lore there.
Ooh.
Wonder if there was any hooded figures there with Suri there, even.
Or Fergus.
Or Fergus. Fergus. Um, so you race up and over to Knoll to grab a light stick and head into the tunnel where you'll be searching for the country flags and count how many of each nationality there was. You would then race back up the tunnel, give those numbers to your appropriate corresponding number of the country to solve 4 equations, to then solve an overall sum of that equation to create your combination for the lock of your partner. Unlock it, hit the bell, fastest team wins, slowest team, or I'm assuming the people who have the least right on their math, loses.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Yeah, I like the challenge, and some of these pairings I like. Like, I just wanted Danny and Ben to brawl.
Oh my god. I was ready for Danny to be like, hey, I can throw you against the ground and just like last season and re-injure your shoulder for you. Would you like that, Ben? Would you like that? I like that they were going in pairs of 2s because it really came into play and you heard it throughout all of them, because I'm not really going to go beat by beat here. A lot of it was, it makes sense for us to work together. It's like, one is there's more light by having 2 lights around, and then it's just okay. Then it just becomes a race about who's better at math. Mm-hmm. So you're doing that, but at the same time, everyone's like, but can I trust that they're giving me accurate information while I'm helping out? Because if I'm giving accurate information, then they're not. I'm screwed, and they're winning.
I would have loved for someone to actually give inaccurate information on purpose.
Well, it's possible. It's possible that they did.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that Troy and Kaz gave each other bad info, but that was just because they both were just wrong.
Speaking of Kaz, that's what I loved. That was one of my favorite parts of the challenge or whatever. Jordan's like, I can help you. And she's, what's 7 times 6? And Jordan's just like, fuck.
What's 8 times 7? What's 8 times 7, Josh? What's 8 times 7?
But an even easier number.
I know. Or it was I think it was an easy number too, what Devin did. But
yeah,
if only Jordan was allowed to have a broken unlit cigarette in his hand while he was locked up, that would have really given us a good calling or a good callback. So both teams that time out are Benha and Jody and Jordan and Kaz. But you know that they give the Kaz line of what's 7 times 6 to really indicate, oh, poor thing.
Yeah, apparently, math's just not for her.
No. But the winning team was Yes and Emily.
Which, Yes was freaking calculator.
Oh my god, yeah. Dude was just there, okay, tell me what's next. It's this number. Next. It's this number.
Was insane.
Yeah. Hey, if you're good at math, this is the competition for you.
No, absolutely.
Especially if you had to do none of the work. All you had to do was actually do the mental math of it all. And Yes is a smart guy, so that's probably very easy for him. But yeah, they win, and the loser is determined to be Jordan and Kaz, which Danny is smiling from ear to ear in confessional, while Tori has the most mad face you can give about it, because she immediately just goes, I bet you're happy that Jordan's down there. And Danny's like, yeah, I am. Yeah, you hate to see it. And Tori's just like, but we could end up being down there to compete against him. And Danny's like, okay then. If I have to take him out, I will.
I was surprised that they weren't one of the names thrown out by the other side.
Well, I think it just comes down to we keep seeing Theo and Sarah's name thrown around. So I feel like Sarah's good with people, but I feel like if you're not good with Sarah, then you're like, oh my god, I need to get rid of Sarah now. Mm-hmm. And it also depends on what you're looking for. Maybe they see Danny and Tori having more of a chance against Jordan and Kaz, especially based off the Kaz and Tori matchup of it all, depending on what the elimination is. Whereas Bananas and Justine, it's like more of an even fight. With Theo and Sarah, you just really don't know, but it's the name that's been said more often. And then you have teams like Jordan there that won't say Tori's name. Casey and Ben didn't say they didn't even say Bananas' name.
No, they did burn votes.
They ultimately burned their vote after like USA was like, hey, let's all come together. We need to do Jody and Benha. And
Is it Amber and Troy?
And no. It was Jody and Benha, Darrell and Kiki, because Yes and Emily wouldn't send Darrell and Kiki down there. So that would then just throw Jody and Benha in. Let's all get on the same page here. And for the most part, like, all of them were on board with it. They're like, okay, yes, that makes sense. You know, that it works in most of our interest. Like, Jody and Benha aren't beating Jordan and Kaz, which would not go with what Sarah and Danny want. But this also is a way where they stay safe, and ultimately their Team Australia allies stay safe as well.
Yeah, it's two names that no one on the USA has a close working relationship with. So it's something, one of the few common grounds that they can all agree on, being like, okay, that's not my number, that's not your number.
Yep.
Let's just do it so we can get our way.
So that gets us, they understand that they need a fifth. They need a fifth team to say this name to really just firm up that these are the two teams that would go in. And Tori's like, I'll just get Kellyanne. Like, she just wants to be in something and we'll make something for her, which is just a total misread over the situation. So Tori goes down and speaks to Kellyanne and says, like, and thinks that Kellyanne will just work with anybody. And she's like, this is a risk. I'm like, yeah, it's a risk and it's a bad one. Like, you should have went to literally anyone else.
Yeah.
And so she gets the plan and then just walks away. She's like, this is what's gonna work for everyone. He's walking away like, this will work for all of us. And Kellyanne just like looks at Casey and goes, hey, this will probably blow up my own game, and I get it, but I don't feel like just following orders. They said my name in the past, and like they didn't want to work with me before. This is like multiple rounds in. Now they want to work with me. Like, it's obviously just for me to be used. So
yeah, it's to get their way, and then her name probably comes up next week.
And I think the biggest thing here is her saying directly to Casey, I don't mind it stalemating.
Yeah.
Even. So that's where I think then Ben and Casey are starting to like panic a little bit. It's like, well, we already had a situation where an Australian team had power, we stalemated, and we were thrown in. And we did win. So now, if we stalemate again, do Yes and Emily just throw us in? And there's a good chance it is.
Yeah.
Like, a very good chance it is. Because I think Yes will just let Emily do her thing, and with Emily and Sarah together, they would just throw Ben in. So I think it's an absolute correct read here. So this gets us to nominations because, well, actually before nominations, Kellyanne starts like creating her army. So she gets to Darrell and says to Darrell, because Darrell's like, I don't know if I can trust Bananas. And he couldn't, because in a sense. Like that the plan doesn't involve putting Darrell in elimination, but involved him being at risk for it. And that's what Kellyanne doesn't say that. Kellyanne says, they're targeting you, Darrell. I don't want to do that. So how about we do this instead? And Darrell's like, you guys want to try to say my name? You're trying to get around me? Y'all motherfuckers are gonna learn.
I'm gonna not do what you want to do, then go back to not doing shit.
Yep. Then I'm getting back on this treadmill.
Yeah.
And what are you guys gonna do? Nothing.
You'll vote for me in 2 weeks. Bring it.
So now we get to nominations, and we see, for the most part, we see the first three teams of Team USA. They're staying in unison. They're being very actively vocal about, like, we discussed as a group. These are the names that are being decided to like keep us together. So Jody and Benha, Darrell and Kiki. And then it starts, and you just hear the names. Sarah and Theo, Bananas and Justine. Sarah and Theo, Bananas and Justine. And suddenly they are the majority vote, and it gets to Ben and Casey, and they are struggling because they're just like, I think they, for all intents and purpose, they wanted to see the plan go through and be able to hide behind Team USA like a tiny bit longer.
They knew they were going in,
but they were like
stalemated.
But they were like, we can't stalemate. We absolutely cannot stalemate. So Sarah and Theo, it locks out the vote, and then they throw a vote at Tristan and Kellyanne.
Yeah.
So your noms are Theo and Sarah and Bananas and Justine. And Kaz doesn't want to go against Theo. They're very fun. I love Theo's confessional where he's like, I really don't want to go against Kaz. I don't want to take her home. But if we're down in the sand together, I am sending her home. Like, that money is mine. I don't care that Jordan's down there. I am going to take them out.
But with Emily being there, they were never in any risk.
No. Never at risk. But more so, with Emily there and with Sarah being his partner, they were not at risk.
Yeah.
So we get club time after the band broke up after 5 minutes. Jody has zero shame. I'm like, Jody, you didn't do the work. No. Kellyanne did the work. Kellyanne deserves to be able to dance and have her drinks and have a fun time tonight. Like, I don't know. Jody's just boring now.
I mean, she's always kind of been boring.
Well, she's always been boring, but she at least was able to be like, but I was very good at the dailies.
Yeah.
And she doesn't really have that anymore. So I'm like...
Now she's just there.
She is there. Like, Benha is the team to me. And you hear Bananas, like, in his, like, little face, like, this is a band of misfits. They're the little rascals. But he's, like, trying to help hype up Justine. Because I think he has liked having Justine as partner. Like, Justine is not a confrontational person. Like, so she listens to what he wants to do, which obviously, like, we have been saying don't do that, but like I get that dynamic is working and I enjoy Justine. So I'm like, I'm glad that they're working alongside, but he's hyping her up, getting her ready. He's like, I'm 2-0 against Jordan in elimination.
Sure, he is.
He is. Hey, he deservedly was 2-0 against Jordan.
Yeah, and he's pretty much handed Jordan half of his elimination losses, maybe a little less, but it's around there because Jordan doesn't lose often.
He does not lose often. But yeah, so we get that, which is like, oh, so they are going to lose. So we get to the arena. Look at that. We were able to get through episode 7 pretty quickly.
There we go.
Episode 7, arena time. Yes and Emily pick Team Bastine.
Not Bastine.
But Team Bastine is in because Sarah has helped Emily in this game. So Yes isn't going to step on Emily's toes. They're going to let Sarah and Theo stay safe.
Yeah, it was the right thing to do. The season's been great.
Yeah, but I can't fault the gameplay. Fault the gameplay.
Not at all. But this one hurt because, I don't think I'm as big of a Bananas guy as you, but I do always root for him. And I think my love for Jordan has been documented. So I was just like,
yeah, this one was a hurt one. But like, I think like I have a love for Jordan, but I also don't mind Jordan leaving most of the time, especially if Tori's in the season. So I'm like, okay, let's get a new storyline here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's called Lock, Stack, and Barrel. And this one, also 3 things, 50%, 30%, 20%.
All right, question. Wasn't one of them math as well?
Yes, and I didn't understand
because it was bullshit. That's the only reason I remember that one.
Not only that, I'm going to give you a hint. It was the exact same thing as the daily, and I do not understand it.
It was ridiculous.
It was 50% math.
50%? Where was the math?
Where was the memory? There's a memory wall right there for them to constantly look at.
All right. Okay. So you gave me my second. All right. Sweet. So math.
No, I told you it's the exact same. It's 50% math, 30% memory, 20% speed.
Oh, it was the exact same. Okay.
It was literally the exact same. Makes no sense.
No, there was no math.
But this is a very straightforward thing to talk about. So it's each team has 2 giant stacks of barrels, and there's this answer key that will be revealed as TJ says go. Uh, on the top of all the barrels are symbols, and you use those symbols to replicate the answer key. When you think you get all of them, you go for a check, and if you're right, you win.
And you do see like it's the veterans, Jordan and Bananas here. They both have the same thought of
Attention to detail.
And like with the way that it was Bananas and Justine had the better strategy. They should have won this.
Well, and so I've seen a lot of comparison online, and like Danny was throwing shade with this about Bananas.
It's completely different.
Bananas' confessional about Turbo, where no one was helping him, and honestly, people should have been helping Bananas. Like from a standpoint of where a lot of these people are aligned, not a lot of these people are aligned with Team UK or specifically Jordan. Like I would understand Tristan helping out Kaz and Kellyanne helping out Jordan and Kaz because they're not Bananas. But like Tori should have just kept her mouth shut completely and not rooting for Jordan. That was stupid. But like Danny should have been calling stuff out. Sarah should have been calling stuff out. Theo should have been calling stuff out. Like there's so many people that were up there that should have been helping Bananas if the goal was to take out Jordan. And I think ultimately what happens here is the people that wanted Jordan to stay said their name, and the people that wanted Jordan to go, I think ultimately got to the point where like, well, either way, we lose a very strong final threat. Mm-hmm. And then we'll figure it out from there. But I just think it was such a bad, especially with only one mistake, because like you hear it from Troy. Like they give Troy the confessional up. I see what the mistake is, but I'm not gonna say. It doesn't make sense for Troy to say it.
It doesn't make sense for Troy to say it, but also going back to it, because yes, I saw what Danny pulled or whatever. The fact of what they did to Turbo compared to what it was here, it's not comparable. It's not even close to being the same as not pointing out the one mistake as opposed to the entire challenge actively helping one side, ensuring that they win.
Right.
It's not the same.
And like I can get Bananas' frustrations there because he also has like friends back there, and it's like, why? Like if it was, especially if it was just one mistake, because it was like their mistake is the Argentinian flag. They had a frowny face sun instead of a smiling sun, and you know what? Like you could say that if they had not helped Jordan, who was struggling there. With a couple of the color ones, like maybe they find it in time, but like they helped Jordan with multiple pieces, and they didn't help with that one thing that could have ensured that Jordan went home while he was really down and out.
But I also think what the difference was there is because you mentioned like it doesn't make sense for Troy to help Bananas. It doesn't make sense for Benha and Jody to help Bananas, and I don't think there was that many people that picked up on that small difference of the flag, where it was a lot easier to pick up on that's the wrong color that anyone could have clearly seen.
I think the issue is the perception is that everyone in the peanut gallery knew, because as soon as Jordan and Kaz ultimately win and get a correct check after Bananas and Justine get an incorrect check again, someone immediately says, like right as soon as the bell rings, oh, you messed up the sun. It should be a smiley face. It didn't show who it was. I forget the voice, so I don't remember if it was Darrell. I don't remember if it was like Yes or somebody. But like I think in my head, if I just lost that, don't tell me what the mistake was, especially that quickly. Because then I react like Bananas, like, you knew it and you didn't tell me. Like we could have finished this. Like
which
minutes ago.
I think it was, I don't think everyone knew, because I think if Theo knew, Theo would have told Bananas. I think like if Casey would have known, she would have told Bananas. Like I think there's a number of people, had they known, would have said something, but it was only half the cast that really figured it out. And all those half had no benefit to USA sticking together. So it made sense to get Bananas and Justine gone.
But Bananas, Justine go. Jordan and Kaz stay. Kaz gets her first elimination win. And we lead this episode with Tori saying that Kellyanne made a fool of her, and I said, yep, and good. But we also lead this with like Tristan not feeling that well. And then it's the next time on where we see Tristan
Everyone's
is
sick.
very sick. Ben is very sick and in a med van. Amber is sick, and we all know what this is. So I'm expecting Amber to leave next episode. Sorry, Troy. Everyone is sick. So I'm very curious to see what's going on there, what was in the water. But that does wrap up in just over 90 minutes, 2 episodes. Episode 6 and episode 7 of the Challenge World Championships. This has been a very fun season. This obviously could have gone a lot longer because there's just so much to talk about. And Dan and I having just so much love for the challenge. It would have been very easy. But that wraps up our discussion today.
Yeah, well, you'll get more of the in-depth conversation episode by episode moving forward because Alex and I will be going back to every Friday covering the episode that came out that Wednesday. So don't you worry. Alex and I are nowhere near close done talking about this yet.
Never. So Dan, wrap us up.
Yeah, that's going to do it for us. We were going to do it in the beginning. I forgot. If you're interested in viewing parties, Survivor 44, Johnny Fairplay is still on his tour. Next week on April 19th, they're going to be back in Cincinnati with our own Matt Bischoff, with Wayne Memmott. They're going to be at the Filson this coming Wednesday in Cincinnati, Ohio. Then on May 3rd, Durham, North Carolina, back with the Queen, Jesse Lopez from last season. For you first boot lovers out there, Zane Knight's supposed to be there, as well as plenty of other special guests. The following week, May 10th, they're going to be in Chicago, Illinois. And then I believe it's, May 17th, Charlottesville, Virginia. And then for the finale, where I live, Charlotte, North Carolina. All of these will have packed houses. It'll be Johnny Fairplay. It'll be the Queen and tons of special guests. You can get tickets for that at survivortix.com. That's survivortix.com. If you're watching, you like what we're doing, we've heard a lot of comments. You're waiting for us to come back because we took a week off. Make sure that if you're watching on YouTube to like and subscribe, hit the bell. That'll let you know when we're going live. Wherever you listen to your podcast, rate and review us 5 stars. As always, the best way to support the podcast is become a patron at realitypatron.com. That's realitypatron.com. Of course, that's Alex Trias. I'm Dan Montchal. We will be back again after episode 8, Survivor 44. I believe that's just you and me again because of their viewing party.
Next week is a Dan and Alex takeover of Reality After Show. At this point, is it really a takeover?
No, it's not. So we'll be live right after the episode. And as we mentioned, next Friday, right around the same time, 3:30, Alex and I will be back covering episode 8 of the Challenge World Championships. That's going to do it for us. We will see you all next week.
See ya.
And for more bonus content, go to realitypatron.com. That's right, become a patron now. Get additional coverage of all your favorite shows, the weekly Q&A, and you become a member of the secret, exclusive Facebook group. That's realitypatron.com.